subways and trains. Abe and I drove too far north on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago and then circled back and parked under 400 Randolph, where some old friends of his parents lived. We walked a couple of miles around downtown and then into a bagel place just past Michigan on Randolph. I sat there and watched Abe eat a rather delicate alfalfa and hummus sandwich. After lunch, we walked up Michigan to the canal, where we saw what I was positive was the parking garage that Jake and Elwood Blues flew their car out of at the end of the Blues Brothers movie. But I wasn't sure and I didn't ask anyone, so I remained not sure. We walked back to the condo tower where we got to meet our hosts, who weren't around when we first got there. She was rich and he drew freelance cartoons. Or maybe she was rich and he just drew cartoons. Anyhow, they showed us the guest room, which was more of a walk-in closet, and then gave us key card access to the building. When Abe called Annabelle, I ditched him. I took a roach from the sport utility ashtray and smoked it in the underground garage and burned my fingers. Then I walked again, down the park, past the Art Institute, past the fountain from the beginning of Married with Children, past Soldiers Field, and on down past a marina where a pack of kids were trying to get past the guard at the gate. Evidently where Scottie Pippen kept his motorboat. Abe took the two of us to a nice Italian place for dinner and picked up the tab. We were in the top part of the city. Lincoln Square, they told us, I'm reasonably sure. But it doesn't matter. Chicago wasn't my town. After dinner, we walked down Halsted Street to a place with pool tables and a room open to the sidewalk, the side room of some Tex-Mex restaurant. We met a few girls there wearing lots of blue eyeliner. They insisted on taking us down the street to a terrible Irish bar with way too much young Irish yelling. Hey, you guys like the new U2 album? To make conversation, I asked if they knew of any blues bars in the area. Oh, you guys like the blues? After a while, we left. They didn't come with us. The "we're on a cool-ass beatnik road trip" thing was probably being laid on a little thick. They were perfectly nice. Two of them were even what some would definitely call hot. But we were gone already. It couldn't have mattered less. A block away, we found a place, but the big man at the door said it was too crowded inside. A couple minutes later, 30 people filed out. Seemed like a fire drill. And when we went inside, it was still too crowded. And loud as shit, but better. The band was excellent, direct and sexy. The subject for the night's lecture was going down on your rider. Big Time Sarah seemed to be deviating from the planned set list, if there ever was one. Her gold teeth flashed in the dim spotlights. The BTS Express tore the house down. There I bought a gray-blue Chicago Blues t-shirt the size of a sheet of notebook paper for little Nick, my prodigal nephew I hadn't met yet, born while we were camping in the deep south somewhere. I also bought a copy of Big Time Sarah's CD and spent the rest of my pocket cash on bargain doubles and the cab ride back to Randolph. For a short while before going to bed, I stood on our host's narrow balcony on the 25th floor, looking out over the southern part of the lake, the park, and the city, and over to the Darth Vader Tower, which had more lights on than I would have expected for a Saturday night. Ernie, the drummer, said once that there are 4 rock bands per capita in Boston. Everyone is in 4 bands. I figured it was probably much the same for Chicago. For just a few minutes, I stared out at the flat Midwest, with its lack of oceans, its ridiculous distance between places, and I was thinking about how bad it would be to grow up in a place with such a prefix, the Midwest. What have you. Mostly just about how tough it is to grow up anywhere at all. Period. In the morning, we bought a bottle of 7-Eleven wine and dropped it off at the concierge. We left the city and its probably tideless beaches minutes later. The first thing we saw of any significance between Chicago and New York was an Indiana rainbow, a giant one that straddled the highway in full double gold pot fantasticness, lit up amazingly by another one of those fireball suns that drop beneath a black cloud blanket in the side view mirrors. A supernatural phenomenon if there ever was such a thing. Second significant thing was the eerie gypsy moth epidemic in western New York that kept us from getting out of the vehicle at 2 consecutive mini-marts. When we finally stopped to eat, we brought 10 moths apiece into the restaurant just for having sprinted the 20 feet from the truck to the doors. The tree tents and the whole bit, vibrating white clouds hovering around spotlights, like a swarm movie without the make-believe, without the suspended disbelief. At Camp Davis, back in Old Westbury, I sat inside for a while, and then outside, between a hammock and a hammock stand, and a tennis court, and then flat on my back on the concrete around the swimming pool with my legs in the water, one of those magazine pools with a wide, flat waterfall spilling over a marble ledge. Abe went to a car wash with his dad. It was late afternoon. The dead, silent fatigue settled in like cement. I was tired beyond recognition. It was coursing through my flesh like the anti-energy, mumbling in the undeniable body language of the young and electric self. The pumping, aching throb and the push to the ends of my limbs, the thump and the soft zooming slide and the slow heavy boom. I felt it big and running up next to my bones again, and the earth quaked inside my chest while I lay down backwards with my eyes closed and my face to space. A sledgehammer dropped onto my sternum from a half-inch above me, again and again, and nobody was anywhere near me, and it looked like I'd be staying in the east for a while. July 11. Hazy, hot, and humid. The second morning, Abe called me on the intercom and told me he was going into the city with me. Click. Abe, I'm going through the city. I'm not going into the city. Click. Sure you are. Annabelle's at her mom's until tomorrow. Oh, so I'm the next best thing? We'll stretch our legs. Do some hiking. No, you'll stretch your legs. Okay, so I want the company. There. That's sweet. Good, then it's done. Whatever, freak. So we rode for the last time in the SUV to the Westbury train station. We took the train to Penn. It was still early in the day. The sun was hitting the sticky concrete apple from the east side of the East River. We walked for quite a while, 2 or 3 hours, all through lower Midtown, down to the Village in Chinatown. In front of the world's biggest store, we saw a man in a dark pinstripe suit lose $20 to a kid flipping thimbles over a marble. I made Abe carry my bag, and to my amazement, he took it. Our first full stop was a small psychedelic Mexican place on the edge of Chinatown, a few blocks off Canal Street. It has the front of an old VW bus stuck to the building above the door. I didn't see a name. For 2 hours, we sat at the bar watching a women's tennis tournament on the TV above the liquor mirror and drank 5 or 6 icy margaritas. $25 in a single sitting with no food besides chips and watery salsa. Yes, I've been planning on quitting alcohol for good one of those days, but getting on the wagon, going cold turkey, never felt right. A mellow turkey is only a cool turkey. Abe, on the other hand, was a bit upset because Annabelle was out of his picture for one more day than he planned. Tough luck, amigo. After the match, after the unidentified brunette beat the unidentified blonde 6'2", 6'3", we hit the pavement, and by this time the sun was coming down from the west. Don't you have an aunt that lives down here somewhere? Abe slurred. referring in part to the parallel universe that exists in and around Canal Street, New York City. You told me about some aunt that used to buy you beer, which is true. I did have an aunt. I do have an aunt. Mom's younger sister still lives, 2 blocks south of the west part of Canal, in a studio apartment on the 5th floor in a building with no elevator, where she lives, or used to live, with a Puerto Rican guy, and where she paints too many red and black ghoulish paintings on too many huge canvases. She was always easy to get along with, but she and Mom hadn't talked since I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. I couldn't remember exactly why, besides the fact that Mom is married to a guy with an overdeveloped sense of civic responsibility, of reputation, reputation. Maybe the fact that Auntie paints red and black ghoulish paintings on huge ghoulish canvases. Anyway, she and her boyfriend both know how to party. So Abe followed me up the mile of mildewed stairs, and we found her as planned. She was by the windows, painting, with green. I hadn't seen her in 3.5 years. Daniel, love, you're drunk again. Family generally refers to me only as Dan or Danny or Daniel. Come sit. This is Abraham. Hello, Abraham. Have a seat, love. So we sat there and talked a little, but it was noisy. 2 little kids were playing Super Nintendo in stereo with surround sound. We told her a little about the trip, about the West and whatnot, and she listened intently as she picked up her brush and vigorously continued painting. An hour or so passed, and then the 3 of us went out. She walked us to East Canal to the edge of the Bowery, and we stepped into a bar that you don't see unless you've been there before, across the street from a big 70s billiards hall and a car wash. Auntie was apparently a regular. We drank Budweisers, with a few guys from the outer reaches of space who looked at us as if we were from the outer reaches of space. But soon enough, the men started treating me as a regular, ignoring me just as they seemed to be best friends and were ignoring each other. One man was alone at a table and nodded to me, probably on account of me being obviously inebriated in the afternoon of a weekday workday. And then I figured he was probably just gay. Shit, Danny, you look like you've aged 10 years since I saw you last. Auntie had turned sideways in her stool and was giving me one of those lookovers that only a mom's younger sister knows how to give. What makes you say that? I asked her, at first thinking it was a pretty cool thing to have said about yourself. But then I dwelled on it a second, as much as I was able to. What did my age feel like? It felt a lot like 12, or else 112. At times I felt like if I aged another day, my cross-circuited gray matter was going to blow out the back of my head. And at other times I felt like I damn well better get another 90 years or I'll die. Then it occurred to me that maybe looking an extra 10 years drawn isn't much of a compliment at all, especially from Auntie. She was just thinking out loud the way she does. After 2 beers there, my eyes burned up and the capillaries began to break. After so many drinks, I usually close them and hope the next thing I trip over is soft and roughly rectangular. But there, with elbows hooked safely to the bar, I felt like I was fitting in. Though Abe, I could tell, was way too good looking to be in a place like this. Abe looked just about exactly 22. For the next 22 years, Abe is going to look just about 22. In the gray window were the remaining letters Boo Wise on the electric coil sign facing the outside. German for be smart, I told Abe. And he believed me, or so it seemed. I let it go. Everybody inside seemed to have spent the whole day there. The walls of the place carried posters and stickers dating back to the 40s, FDR in 44, Love is grand. Divorce is 20 grand. It's Sinatra's world. We just live in it. Get even. Live long enough to be a problem to your kids. Selling paintings is like getting paid to eat ice cream. Don't drink and drive. You might spill your drink. Beer. So much more than just a breakfast drink. Re-elect President Kennedy. Bartenders are always in good spirits. Caution, men drinking. Murphy Brown for vice president. And over the toilet, my own sentimental favorite, skateboarding is not a crime.